an original story created exclusively for Love Among Diamonds. Rain hammered against the cafe windows as Laya wiped down the last table. Exhaustion etched across her face. The jingle of the door caught her off guard. Nobody came to Café Lumière this late, especially not during a storm. She turned to find Adrien Blake standing in the doorway. Raindrops glistening on his expensive coat, his presence commanding the small space she'd fought so hard to keep. When their eyes met, something shifted in the air between them, a dangerous, unspoken current that made her grip the cloth tighter. "You shouldn't be out alone in this weather," he said, his voice softer than the headlines about him suggested. "Let me get you home safe." His offer hung in the midnight air, and Laya knew that whatever she answered would change everything. The clock struck midnight as Laya Matthews flipped the sign on Café Lumière's door. Closed. Rain pounded against the windows, matching the rhythm of her exhaustion. 3 years of pouring her soul into this place. And still she barely made ends meet. Tonight's storm had kept customers away, making it one of the worst Fridays in months. She wiped down the counter one last time, mentally calculating how long she could delay paying the electricity bill. The cafe wasn't just a business. It was her mother's legacy. The only thing she had left of her. Failure wasn't an option. The unexpected jingle of the door made her jump. She hadn't locked up yet. "I'm sorry, we're closed," she called, not looking up. "Just one coffee, please." The voice was deep, commanding yet somehow gentle. Laya turned and froze, standing in her doorway, rain dripping from his tailored coat onto her worn wooden floors. Was Adrien Blake, CEO of Blake Industries, and one of the city's most powerful men. She'd seen him in magazines and news segments, but they didn't capture the intensity of his presence. His dark eyes surveyed her small cafe with curiosity, rather than judgment. "Mr. Blake," she managed, straightening her apron instinctively. "I was just closing." "I know," he said, running a hand through his damp hair. "I saw your lights from my car. It's been a long day, and I could really use some coffee before heading home." Something in his expression, a flicker of weariness beneath the confidence, made her hesitate. Against her better judgment, she nodded. "One coffee," she agreed, moving back behind the counter. "Then I really need to close." He smiled, and for a moment, he looked like any other tired soul seeking comfort in her cafe at the end of a long day. The storm intensified while Adrien sipped his coffee. Laya busied herself cleaning, trying to ignore his presence, the way he watched her with quiet interest. "This is excellent," he said, breaking the silence. "Most places overcomplicate coffee." "My mother's recipe," she replied, surprised by the compliment. "Nothing fancy, just attention to detail." Lightning flashed, followed by a deafening crack of thunder. The lights flickered once, twice, then stabilized. "Do you live far?" Adrien asked, glancing at the torrential downpour outside. "About 20 minutes walking," Laya said, gathering her things. "I'll be fine," he frowned. "You can't walk in this. Let me drive you home." "That's not necessary," she said quickly. Too quickly. "The neighborhood isn't safe this late, especially in weather like this." His tone was matter of fact, not condescending. "I have my car outside." Laya hesitated. The storm had turned the streets into rivers, and last month a woman had been mugged just 2 blocks away. Still, getting into a car with Adrien Blake seemed equally dangerous, though for entirely different reasons. "I don't make a habit of accepting rides from strangers," she said. His lips curved slightly. "We're not exactly strangers now. You know my name, I know your coffee. And I know you're too practical to walk 20 minutes in this weather." Another crash of thunder made her decision for her. She locked the cafe door, pulled her coat tight, and nodded. "Just this once," she said, "and only because of the storm." Adrien's car wasn't just a car. It was a fortress of luxury. Laya slid onto butter-soft leather seats, acutely aware of her worn jeans and coffee-stained sweater. The contrast between them couldn't be more stark. Her struggling to keep her mother's cafe alive, him probably making more in a minute than she did in a month. "Left at the light," she directed, keeping her voice steady. Rain drummed against the tinted windows as they drove in silence. Laya caught him glancing at her, his expression unreadable. "Why were you out so late?" she asked, curiosity overcoming caution. "Board meeting ran long, then paperwork." He navigated the flooded streets with ease. Sometimes I need to escape the office, drive around, clear my head. And you ended up at my cafe. I've passed it before. Always wondered about it. His fingers tapped the steering wheel. Lumiere light. My mother named it, Laya explained. She believed a good cafe should be a beacon in the dark, somewhere warm when the world is cold. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition, perhaps. She was right. They turned onto her street, lined with aging apartment buildings. Laya pointed to hers, suddenly embarrassed by its peeling paint and broken security gate. "Thank you for the ride," she said as he pulled up. "Thank you for the coffee." His eyes met hers, intense and searching. "And the company." For a moment, neither moved. The car's interior felt impossibly intimate, the rain creating a cocoon around them. Then Laya broke the spell, reaching for the door. "Good night, Mr. Blake." "Adrien," he corrected. "And Laya, I might stop by again, if that's all right." She should say no. She should keep her distance from men like him. Men whose worlds would never truly intersect with hers, except in passing moments like these. "The cafe closes at midnight," she said instead, and stepped into the rain. Laya's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Groggily, she checked the screen to find 12 missed calls and a flurry of text messages from her best friend. "Maya, call me now," the latest one screamed. She dialed, still half asleep. "What's wrong?" "Check your social media, now." Maya's voice was a mixture of excitement and concern, confused. Laya opened her feed and nearly dropped her phone. There it was, a grainy photo of her and Adrien Blake, standing in the rain outside her cafe. The headline read, "Blake Industries CEO spotted with mystery woman, new romance." "That's not, we weren't," she sputtered. "The whole city's talking about it," Maya said. "Who is she? How did they meet? Is she the reason he's been turning down Elise Winters?" Elise Winters, the heiress. His family's been pushing for that match for years. Society pages had them practically engaged. Laya's stomach knotted. She'd served Adrien Blake one coffee and let him drive her home. Now she was tabloid fodder. Her phone pinged with a notification. The cafe's social media account had gained thousands of followers overnight. Reservation requests were flooding in. "This is insane," she muttered. "Welcome to life in the spotlight," Maya said. "What are you going to do?" Laya stared at the photo. Adrien was looking at her with an intensity that made her cheeks warm even now. She remembered the quiet intimacy of his car, the way he'd asked if he could return. "Nothing," she decided. "It was just coffee. He won't be back." But even as she said it, she wasn't sure if that was disappointment or relief she felt. For 3 nights, Laya told herself he wouldn't return. For 3 nights, she was wrong. At exactly midnight, as she wiped down the last table, the door would open. Adrien would enter, shake rain from his coat, and take the same corner seat. He never came earlier. Never when other customers might recognize him. "You don't have to keep the cafe open for me," he said on the 4th night. "I don't," she replied, setting down his coffee. "I always close at midnight." Their routine was simple. Coffee, conversation, then he'd drive her home. They talked about everything and nothing. Books they'd read, places they'd seen, dreams they kept hidden. Never about the photos circulating online, the speculation growing with each sighting. On the 7th night, he arrived with shadows under his eyes. "Rough day?" she asked, already preparing his usual. "The board isn't happy with me." His voice was tight. "Apparently, my personal life is affecting stock prices." Laya's hand faltered. "Because of me." "Because of their perception," he corrected. "They think I'm distracted." "Are you?" Their eyes met across the counter. Something electric passed between them. "Yes," he admitted softly, "but not in the way they think. Laya should end this, whatever this was. She should protect herself from the complications of his world. Instead, she found herself looking forward to midnight, to the man who seemed to find peace in her small cafe, to the way he looked at her when he thought she wouldn't notice. Adrien Blake, slumming it or serious. The headline glared from a magazine someone had left behind. Laya tossed it in the trash, but not before seeing the side-by-side photos. Adrien at a gala with Elise Winters, both polished and perfect. Adrien outside her cafe, looking at Laya with an expression that made her heart race, even in grainy newsprint. The cafe had never been busier. People came hoping to glimpse the billionaire, or the woman who'd caught his attention. Most left disappointed, unaware that he only appeared when the doors were locked and the lights were dim. "They're writing about you again," she told him that night, refilling his cup. "They always write about me." He seemed unconcerned. "Does it bother you?" "I don't like being called the barista fling or his working-class distraction." His jaw tightened. "That's not what this is." "Then what is it, Adrien?" The question had been building for weeks. "Why do you come here every night?" He studied her for a long moment. "Because when I'm here, I'm just a man having coffee. Not a CEO, not a Blake, not whatever they say I am in those magazines." His fingers brushed hers as he took the cup. "And because you're the only person who doesn't want something from me." The simple honesty of his answer caught her off guard. She thought of the pressure he faced daily: board meetings, public scrutiny, family expectations. "What if I do want something?" she asked softly. His eyes darkened. "What do you want, Laya?" "The truth, always." He nodded slowly. "I can give you that." Rain pounded against the cafe windows as thunder rolled overhead. The storm had knocked out power in half the neighborhood, including Laya's apartment building. Adrien had insisted she stay at the cafe until it was restored. They sat across from each other, faces illuminated by candlelight. The intimate setting made it harder to maintain the careful distance Laya had tried to preserve. "Tell me about your mother," Adrien said, breaking a comfortable silence. Laya traced the rim of her cup. "She was everything to me, raised me alone after my father left, worked 3 jobs to save for this cafe." The memory ached. "She died 2 years after opening it. Cancer." "I'm sorry." His voice was gentle. "That's why you work so hard to keep it going. It's all I have left of her." Laya looked up. "What about your family?" Something shuddered in his expression. "Complicated." "That's not an answer," he sighed. "My father built Blake Industries from nothing, expected perfection from everyone, especially his son and heir." Bitterness edged his words. "My mother was the opposite, warm, compassionate. She died when I was 15. And your father?" "Had a heart attack at his desk 3 years ago. Working, of course." Adrien's laugh held no humor. "His last words to me were about quarterly projections." Laya reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. The gesture crossed an unspoken boundary between them. "Is that why you come here?" "Because it reminds you of her." His fingers intertwined with hers, warm and solid. "I come here because of you, Laya. Because when I'm with you, I remember there's more to life than balance sheets and board meetings." The candlelight caught the vulnerability in his eyes, a crack in his carefully maintained facade. Laya felt something shift between them, something that couldn't be undone. "Adrien," she whispered, but whatever she might have said was lost as his phone rang, shattering the moment. "They're giving me an ultimatum." Adrien paced the length of the cafe, tension radiating from him. "Either I resolve my personal situation, or they'll vote to have me temporarily step down as CEO." Laya leaned against the counter, stomach knotted. "Because of me." "Because they're afraid of anything they can't control." He stopped, running a hand through his hair. "The company's going through a critical merger. They claim my distractions are jeopardizing it. What will you do?" His eyes met hers, conflicted. "I don't know. My father's legacy is at stake. Thousands of jobs." The weight of his world pressed down on them both. This was exactly why Laya had tried to keep her distance. Their lives existed in different orbits, with different gravitational pulls. "Maybe we should take a step back," she suggested, the words painful to voice. "Until after your merger. Is that what you want?" No, she wanted to say. What she wanted was impossible. To keep him, to keep her cafe, to keep her heart intact. Instead, she said, "I want what's best for both of us." Adrien moved closer, his expression intense. "And if I told you that you're what's best for me?" Before she could answer, his phone buzzed with an incoming message. The real world, intruding again. The magazine hit the counter with a slap. The headline screamed, "Blake heir to wed socialite. Adrien Blake and Elise Winter's engagement announcement expected this week. Care to explain?" Laya's voice was steady despite the hurt churning inside. Adrien stared at the cover, his expression darkening. "This is the first I'm hearing of it, really. Because according to this, your families have been planning it for months." "It's not true," he insisted. "Yes, our families are close. Yes, There's been pressure. But I never agreed to anything. Laya wanted to believe him. The past weeks had created something between them. Something fragile and undefined, but increasingly precious. The board, she realized. This is their solution to your personal situation. I had nothing to do with this. Adrien reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Maybe not directly. But you didn't stop it either. The hurt crystallized into anger. You come here every night, Adrien. You share parts of yourself. Make me believe there's something real between us. All while this was happening in your world. Laya, I've been honest with you from the beginning. I showed you my life, my struggles, my heart. Her voice caught. What have you shown me? Midnight visits. Secret conversations. I don't even know where you live. The truth hung between them. He existed in her world only in shadows and whispers, while she had no place in his daylight hours. I need you to leave, she said quietly. For once, Adrien Blake didn't argue. He simply nodded and walked out, leaving the bell above the door to signal his departure. 3 days passed without Adrien. 3 days of Laya telling herself it was for the best, that whatever had been growing between them was doomed from the start. 3 days of checking her phone, hoping for a message that never came. The cafe buzzed with unusual activity for a Tuesday night. The engagement rumors had only increased public curiosity. Laya moved mechanically between tables, forcing smiles that didn't reach her eyes. At 11:30, the door opened, and her heart stopped. Adrien stood there, looking both out of place and exactly where he belonged. The cafe fell silent as recognition rippled through the customers. We need to talk, he said, his voice carrying in the sudden quiet. I'm working. Laya turned away, busying herself with the espresso machine. Laya, please. The raw emotion in his voice made her look up. His usually immaculate appearance was disheveled. Dark circles under his eyes suggesting he'd slept as poorly as she had. 5 minutes, she conceded, leading him to the back office, painfully aware of the curious stares following them. There is no engagement, he said the moment the door closed. I've issued a public denial. My lawyers are demanding a retraction from every outlet that ran the story. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to know the truth. He stepped closer. I've never wanted that life, the arranged marriage, the society pages. That's why I come here. Why I'm drawn to you. And the board. The merger. I told them I won't be manipulated. Not anymore. His eyes held hers. I've spent my entire life living up to my father's legacy, being who everyone needed me to be, until I met you. Laya's resolve wavered. Adrien. A commotion from the cafe interrupted them. Maya appeared at the door, eyes wide. You might want to see this, she said, holding up her phone to a breaking news alert. Blake Industries shares plummet amid CEO personal drama. The news spread like wildfire. Blake Industries stock had dropped 15% since Adrien's public denial of the engagement rumors. Analysts cited leadership instability and concerning personal choices as factors making investors nervous. This is exactly what the board warned me about, Adrien said grimly, scanning the financial reports on his tablet. They sat in the cafe after hours, the space empty except for them. Your personal life shouldn't affect your company's value, Laya argued. But it does. Perception is reality in my world. He set the tablet down. The merger's in jeopardy. Partners are getting nervous. So what now? You give in. Announce an engagement to Elise after all. The thought made her stomach clench. That would be the simplest solution. His eyes met hers, but not one I'm willing to take. Rain began to fall outside, gentle at first, then building to a steady rhythm that mirrored the tension between them. I built my life around this cafe, Laya said softly. It's my mother's dream, my responsibility. I understand what your company means to you. Are you saying we should end this? I'm saying I understand the cost. She took a deep breath. I can't ask you to choose between me and everything you've worked for. Adrien reached across the table, taking her hand in his. What if I told you I'm tired of living my life according to balance sheets and stock prices? I'd say you're not thinking clearly, or maybe, for the first time, I am. The rain had intensified by closing time, reminiscent of the night they first met. Laya stood beneath the cafe awning, watching sheets of water cascade from the sky. Let me drive you home, Adrien said, joining her. I think we both know That's not a good idea. Because of the stock price. The rumors. Frustration edged his voice. When did we let other people dictate what happens between us? Since your entire company is at stake. Laya turned to face him. This isn't just about us, Adrien. It's about your father's legacy, your employees, your responsibility. And what about my responsibility to myself, to what I want? The rain dampened his hair, his expensive suit, but he seemed not to notice. I've spent my life being Adrien Blake, CEO, making the practical choice, the responsible choice, until you. Something in his expression made her breath catch. Raw honesty, vulnerability she'd never seen in him before. What are you saying? She whispered. I'm saying that for the first time, I want something for myself, not for the company, not for my father's memory. He stepped closer, rain soaking them both now. I want the woman who serves me coffee at midnight and challenges everything I thought I knew about myself. Laya's heart hammered against her ribs. You don't know what you're giving up. I know exactly what I'm giving up. The question is whether what I'm gaining is worth it. His hands framed her face, gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. Tell me to walk away, Laya. Tell me you don't feel this too, and I'll go. The rain fell around them, creating a world where only they existed. In that moment, Laya couldn't lie, not to him, not to herself. I can't tell you that, she admitted, her voice barely audible above the storm. Something shifted in his expression, relief, joy, determination. Then let me show you what I'm willing to risk for us. His lips found hers, tender at first, then with growing passion. The kiss tasted of rain and coffee and possibility. Laya's hands gripped his soaked shirt, pulling him closer, surrendering to the connection they'd both been fighting. When they finally broke apart, breathless and dripping, Adrien pressed his forehead to hers. Tomorrow, he promised. Tomorrow I'll show the world exactly where I stand. Cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions as Adrien took the podium. Laya watched from the back of the crowded hotel ballroom, heart in her throat. She shouldn't be here. This was his world, not hers, but he had insisted. Thank you all for coming, Adrien began, his voice steady. The room quieted. I've called this press conference to address the rumors surrounding my personal life and their impact on Blake Industries. He looked every inch the powerful CEO in his tailored suit, commanding the room with practiced ease. Yet Laya could see the tension in his shoulders, the subtle clench of his jaw. First, I want to categorically deny the engagement rumors between myself and Elise Winters. She is a family friend, nothing more. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Cameras clicked frantically. Second, I want to address the recent volatility in our stock price. His gaze swept the room. Blake Industries remains financially sound. The merger negotiations continue on schedule. Any market fluctuations based on my personal life are speculative and short-sighted. A reporter called out, "What about the woman from the cafe? Is she the reason you're rejecting the Winters match?" Adrien's eyes found Laya's across the room. Something passed between them, a silent question, a moment of decision. Her name is Laya Matthews, he said, his voice softening. And yes, she is important to me, more important than stock prices or society expectations. The room erupted. Laya felt the weight of dozens of stares, heard her name repeated in shocked whispers. I've spent my life building Blake Industries into a company my father would be proud of. Adrien continued once the noise subsided, but in doing so, I lost sight of what truly matters. I forgot that my father built this company, not just for profit, but to create something meaningful. He straightened, his gaze unwavering. I found something meaningful with Laya. Something real, and I won't apologize for that. Nor will I hide it to appease shareholders or gossip columns. As reporters shouted new questions, Adrien stepped away from the podium and walked directly to Laya, taking her hand in full view of the cameras. Ready? He asked quietly. She nodded, though she wasn't ready at all. The world exploded around them. Overnight, Laya became the subject of intense scrutiny. Her past relationships dissected. Her cafe reviewed by food critics who'd never noticed it before. Her social media accounts flooded with messages ranging from supportive to vicious. Gold digger, social climber, calculating. Laya scrolled through comments, her voice hollow. They don't even know me. They're afraid of what they don't understand, Adrien said, sitting beside her in the cafe's back office. A CEO falling for a cafe owner doesn't fit their narrative. Is that what this is? Falling for me. She looked up, needing to hear it directly. His expression softened. You know it is. Outside, paparazzi lingered, hoping to catch them together. Business had doubled. People ordering the simplest coffee just to stare at the woman who'd captured Adrien Blake's attention. I never wanted this, she said. The attention, the scrutiny. I just wanted my cafe in. She hesitated. And you, the real you, the man who comes at midnight. Not the CEO everyone wants a piece of. Adrien took her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. I'm still that man. This noise will die down eventually, will it? Your board is threatening to remove you. Your stock hasn't recovered. The weight of it all pressed on her. Maybe we moved too fast. Maybe we should take a step back until things calm down. Is that what you want? No, it wasn't. What she wanted was impossible. To have him without the complications his world brought. To keep her simple life while adding him to it. I want what's best for both of us, she said finally. And if I told you that you're what's best for me? He echoed his words from weeks ago. This time, there was no phone call to interrupt her answer. Just the uncertainty of a future neither of them had planned for. Laya stood in the empty cafe, running her fingers along the worn counter her mother had loved. The place felt different now, still hers, but somehow changed by recent events. My mother would have liked you, she said when Adrien entered. They had agreed to meet after hours, away from prying eyes. Tell me why, he said, joining her at the counter. She believed in taking chances, in following your heart, even when it seemed impossible. Laya smiled sadly. She left everything to open this cafe. Everyone said she was crazy, that she'd fail, but she didn't. Not until cancer took her, but even then, she considered herself successful, because she'd been brave enough to try. Laya turned to face him. This cafe isn't just a business to me, Adrien. It's her courage, her dreams, her legacy. Understanding dawned in his eyes. Like Blake Industries is my father's legacy. Exactly. She took a deep breath. That's why I understand why you can't walk away from it, and why I can't ask you to. What are you saying? I'm saying that I care about you too much to watch you lose everything you've worked for. Her voice trembled slightly. The board meeting is tomorrow. They're voting on your leadership. Laya, go to the meeting, she interrupted. Secure your position. Save your father's legacy. She swallowed hard. And then, if you still want to, come back to me. Adrien studied her face, his expression unreadable. And if coming back to you means losing the company, then we'll both have to live with that choice. The board meeting lasted 6 hours. Laya knew because she checked her phone every 15 minutes, despite telling herself not to. The cafe bustled with unusual activity, curious onlookers still hoping for a glimpse of drama. But she moved through it mechanically, thoughts elsewhere. At precisely 5 o'clock, breaking news alerts lit up her phone. Blake remained CEO in narrow board vote. Relief washed over her, followed immediately by uncertainty. What did this mean for them? Had he compromised? Made promises to appease the board? The cafe emptied as evening approached. By 11, only Maya remained, concern etched on her face. Go home, Laya told her. I'll close up. Are you sure? He might not come. I know. Laya managed to smile. But I need to be here either way. Alone. She wiped down tables, straightened chairs, performed the closing ritual that had become second nature. The clock ticked toward midnight. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Turn on the financial news. Confused, she did. A reporter stood outside Blake Industries headquarters. In a shocking move, CEO Adrien Blake has announced a restructuring that will see him step back from day-to-day operations while remaining chairman of the board. Sources say this compromise satisfied directors concerned about his recent personal distractions. The bell above the door jingled. Laya turned to find Adrien standing there, looking both exhausted and somehow lighter than she'd ever seen him. I chose, he said simply. I chose us. Midnight silence enveloped them. Rain tapped gently against the windows. It always seemed to rain during their pivotal moments, as if the universe were washing away everything but the two of them. What does this mean? Laya asked, still processing the news report. Stepping back as CEO. It means I'll oversee the company's vision and long-term strategy, but not the daily operations. Adrien moved closer, his expression open. It means reasonable hours, less travel, more midnight coffees. But your father's legacy is secure, he finished. The board accepted my compromise. The merger is proceeding. And I get to have a life beyond the boardroom. Laya studied his face, searching for regret or hesitation. Are you sure this is what you want? I've never been more certain of anything. His voice was steady, resolute. My father built Blake Industries to last generations, but he sacrificed everything else to do it. His marriage, his relationship with me, ultimately his health. That's not the legacy I want to continue. He took her hands in his, the gesture intimate in the empty cafe. I want to build something different, something balanced. With me. The question was barely audible. With you. His thumbs traced circles on her palms. If you'll have me, with all the complications I bring. The weight of the decision pressed on her. Loving Adrien meant stepping into a spotlight she never wanted. Facing scrutiny and judgment. But not loving him meant returning to a life that now seemed incomplete. I'm not sure I know how to fit into your world, she admitted. Then we'll create our own. He squeezed her hands gently, starting here, where it all began. The sincerity in his eyes made her heart ache with possibility. Whatever came next wouldn't be easy. But perhaps it would be worth it. I was engaged once before, Laya said quietly. They sat at her favorite corner table, coffee growing cold between them. To a man who said all the right things, made all the right promises. Adrien listened, giving her the space to continue. He was ambitious, climbing the corporate ladder. I supported him, believed in him. Her fingers traced the table's worn edge. Then he got the promotion he wanted. And suddenly, I didn't fit his new image. Too ordinary, he said. Not sophisticated enough for where he was headed. Understanding dawned in Adrien's eyes. That's why you were so hesitant with me. I built walls after that, focused on the cafe, on concrete things I could control. She met his gaze. Then you walked in, and something about you made those walls feel permeable. I have walls too, he admitted. My father taught me that vulnerability was weakness, that emotions had no place in business or life. I learned to compartmentalize, to present whatever face was needed. And now I find myself wanting to be seen, really seen. His voice softened. By you. Rain continued its gentle rhythm against the windows, creating a cocoon around them as secrets and fears were laid bare. I'm terrified, Laya confessed, not of loving you, but of losing myself in your world. Of becoming a footnote in the Adrien Blake story, rather than the author of my own. I would never want that. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. What you've built here, your independence, your strength, that's what drew me to you. I don't want to change that. I want to be part of it. And I'm afraid of not being enough, he continued, vulnerability naked in his voice. Not the CEO my father was, not the society match everyone expected, not the man you deserve. The admission, so contrary to his public image of unwavering confidence, touched something deep within her. Here was the real Adrien, the man behind the headlines and boardroom decisions. What if, she said slowly, we both agreed to be afraid together, to build something new, neither your world nor mine, but ours. His fingers intertwined with hers, warm and solid. I'd say that sounds like the best business proposition I've ever heard. For the first time since he'd walked into her cafe that rainy night, Laya felt the walls between them truly fall. Dawn light filtered through the cafe windows, casting everything in a soft, golden glow. They had talked through the night, planning and dreaming, and confronting fears. The media won't leave us alone, Adrien said, pragmatic even in this intimate moment. Not at first. We need to be prepared for that. I know. Laya's initial panic at the thought had mellowed into resolution. We'll face it together. And the cafe. You won't give it up. Never. Her voice was firm. It's part of who I am. He smiled, the expression warming his entire face. Good. Because I have some ideas for expansion, if you're interested. Not corporate takeover, he added quickly, seeing her expression. But support, resources, opportunities. Partners, she suggested. Equal partners. In everything. He took her hand, his expression growing serious. Laya, I need you to know something. This isn't impulsive for me. It's not about rebellion or midlife crisis or any of the things the tabloids suggest. Then what is it about? Finding balance, finding joy. His thumb traced her knuckles. Finding someone who sees me as a person, not a position or a portfolio. The simple honesty of his words touched her deeply. This was the real Adrien, thoughtful, vulnerable, seeking connection just as she was. I'm still scared, she admitted, of the attention, the expectations, the differences in our worlds. I am too, he confessed. But I'm more afraid of walking away from this, from us, than I am of facing those challenges. Outside, the city was waking up. Soon the cafe would open. Reality would intrude, and they would begin navigating their new path together. There would be difficulties, board meetings, and media scrutiny, different backgrounds and expectations. But in this moment, those concerns seemed manageable. So we do this? Her voice steady, despite the magnitude of the decision. We take this risk together? Adrien's eyes held hers, filled with certainty and something deeper, something that made her heart race. Some risks are worth taking, he said simply. You're worth it to me. 1 month later, Laya closed the cafe at midnight, the ritual familiar yet different now. The media frenzy had quieted to a dull roar. Paparazzi still occasionally lingered outside, but customers had returned to normal, mostly. The bell above the door jingled. She didn't need to look up to know who it was. Right on time, she said, smiling as Adrien crossed the threshold. I have a reputation to maintain. He shrugged off his coat, hanging it on the rack that had become unofficially his. No more rain tonight. The sky outside was clear, stars visible despite the city lights. They had settled into a new routine. Adrien worked reasonable hours now, dividing his time between Blake Industries' strategic direction and helping Laya implement subtle improvements to the cafe. They had dinner together most nights, sometimes at her apartment, sometimes at his penthouse. They were learning each other's worlds, creating something new between them. How was the board meeting? She asked, preparing his usual coffee. Productive. The merger's officially complete. He leaned against the counter, watching her with appreciation. How was your day? Busy. That food critics review brought in new customers. She handed him the cup. I hired another barista to help with the morning rush. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, the simple contact still sending warmth through her. Some things hadn't changed. The connection between them. The way time seemed to slow when they were together. Do you ever regret it? She asked suddenly. The compromise, the media attention, all of it. Adrien set down his coffee and drew her into his arms, his expression serious. Not for a second. In the quiet of the cafe where it all began, surrounded by the legacy of her mother and the promise of their future, Laya stood on tiptoe and kissed him, a gesture that felt both familiar and thrillingly new. Neither do I, she whispered against his lips. The expanded Café Lumière buzzed with activity. The original location remained unchanged. Laya had insisted on preserving its character, but they had opened a second, larger space next door, connected by a doorway that had once been a wall. Adrien moved between tables, greeting customers with an ease that still surprised Laya. The former CEO had discovered an unexpected talent for hospitality, his natural charisma making guests feel welcome. Your boyfriend's good for business, Maya remarked, nodding toward a group of women not so subtly watching Adrien. Partner, Laya corrected with a smile. The term felt right. They were equals in this venture and in life. Later, after closing, they sat at their corner table. Adrien's phone buzzed with a message from his COO. Some questions about tomorrow's strategy meeting, but he set it aside after a quick reply. Blake Industries surviving without your constant attention, Laya teased. Better than ever. He reached across the table, taking her hand, and so am I. Outside, rain began to fall, a gentle reminder of the night that had changed everything. Inside, surrounded by the warmth of the cafe and the certainty of their connection, Laya and Adrien shared a smile that spoke of risks taken and rewards found. Some midnights changed everything. This one had given them both exactly what they needed.